Yes. Dr. Ayers,
Here.
Dr. Fairfax,
Present.
Dr. Motley, Chief Richardson, Ms. Vanderhyde,
Here.
Delegate Ward,
Present.
and Senator Lucas.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Now, we need to have a motion for the approval of the meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the last meeting be approved. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed. And so now we're going to go back to you, Stephanie, for approval of the virtual meeting policy.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Let's see, I wanted to just quickly ask you all for a vote of approval on the virtual meeting policy, which allows you all to meet, not that we may need to meet again. This may be it, but let's go the record.
Yes.
This will allow us to meet 2 times or 50% of the calendar year. So we have to take a vote each year on the
Sure.
policy now according to FOIA.
Sure.
So if I can have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for the approval of the virtual meeting policy. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, ma'am.
So we have now approval for the virtual meeting. Now we're gonna go to Stephanie, you're still up. Because of
Oh, the public
the
comment.
public comment, yes.
Oh, we're doing public comment now. Yes. We have one person that is signed in to speak
And
here
that
in
is-
person.
Robert, do you want to come up, to the front?
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Just wanted to give thanks to, first of all, the leaders who had the vision to put forth this extraordinary project. But we want to also thank you, Senator Lucas, and the commission for your leadership, oversight, and commitment to this project. And you did a phenomenal job in selecting a sculptor. Stephen Weissman has been passionate. He's been sensitive. He's been, his creativity speaks for itself.
He exceeds all expectations.
All the expectations.
Mhm.
And I just want to say, you couldn't have selected a better person and sculptor, but a better person, I believe, than Stephen to fulfill this project. And he brought Barbara's statue to life.
Mhm.
And finally, I just want to say to you,
Director Langhorne.
to Julie,
Mhm.
Julie, you have done an outstanding job, and we sincerely appreciate you for keeping us abreast of all of this, this whole process. My parents, and I made a comment when we first met about my parents being able to look at the statue and see their daughter. I know now that my parents would be able to look at that statue and say, that's our daughter Barbara. So thank you all for everything that you've done. And we could not be more pleased with how things have turned out. Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now for updates and presentations of the completed statue, we'll turn it over to Director Langhorne.
Thank you. I'd like to lead off with a few thanks of my
I
own.
think Stephanie has a hand raised.
Sorry, we did have one person, Mr. Kanan Thompson from the Moton Museum, who had signed up to speak virtually, but I don't see him online today.
Okay.
I did want to just acknowledge that.
Oh, okay, thank you.
If he does show up, we
Yeah,
could have
I'll-
him speak.
I'll keep an eye.
Yes.
And
Okay.
and also if we can, Senator Lucas, have you approve the agenda and the minutes before Julie gets started, that'd be great.
We did the minutes.
We did the minutes, but
Oh,
not the agenda.
Well, we're done with it now, but anyway. Can I get a motion for the approval of the meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and second that the approval for the meeting agenda that's almost complete. Agree to, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, okay.
No discussion?
So now, so,
Talk about it.
so at least now we are in order.
There's always.
Okay, now we're gonna turn it back over to Director Langen.
Yes, I want to lead off by thanking members of the Johns family, Robert and Ernest and Sydney, and of course, Joan, who's not with us here today. This has been a collaborative process from the beginning, and I echo Robert's comments that I think you selected the very best sculptor possible for this commission. Stephen has been fully invested and engaged from the beginning. And as a result, is really exhausted. He didn't want to be here today. He's eagerly awaiting an update from me after the meeting adjourns. But he did ask me to thank the commission members on his behalf. And he wanted to say that any congratulations that are shared are deserved by everybody involved. And that includes the Johns family, because it was a collaborative effort from the beginning to the end. And he's just so grateful to have been a part of this. I also want to thank Margie, who is a commission member who actually accompanied me to the Foundry and to Stephen's studio. And I really appreciate the time that you dedicated to making those visits. It gave me comfort to have someone else to talk to about some of the decisions that were being made. So I want to bring you up to speed, because even though it's been a while since you've met, a lot has been happening. And on the screen before you are just some of the major highlights of what took place. The design process took longer than maybe we expected, but you can't rush something like this. And we didn't want to put pressure on Stephen to feel that he had to hurry. We wanted him to take the time necessary. So he did, and I think you're going to see the results of that and be very, very pleased. So I'm going to run through some photographs. And this was one of the first visits made to the Foundry. And I should say, I think that members of the Johns family visited the Foundry more than I did, which I really appreciate. Because you were the ones who were integral to making sure that the likeness really did capture Barbara's image. So when we went in October, more members of the Johns family than I had met previously were on that visit. And at this time, the statue had been cast, but the pieces had not been welded together. They were just temporarily assembled so that we could still have the opportunity to make any adjustments that we thought necessary. And we also chose the patina. And you see Stephen pulling out a drawer with all the different samples of the colors of patina that could be applied to the bronze. And so we made that decision on that day. When Margie and I went back in May, the statue had been welded together. All the solders had been finished and smoothed out. There had been a minor adjustment made, and it had been sandblasted. So it was a very uniform color. It almost looked like aluminum. And that was before the patina was applied. And then when I went up in the middle of May, just after the statue had been moved from the Foundry back to Stephen's studio, this was the finished piece. And ignore the plastic that's wrapped around the top of the pedestal in some of these pictures. That was left over from the transport. But the statue wasn't affixed to the pedestal. It was just resting on it so that we could get photographs of the completed piece, which are needed to request final approval from the Joint Committee on the Library. So this is in its completed form with the patina applied. And I just want you to see some of the close-ups of the piece. I love the stage floor, which captures the warping of the floorboards and the grain of the wood. On display, well, not even display really, just casually sitting there were a pair of saddle shoes, real saddle shoes that Stephen had used as a guide for the shoes that he sculpted. And then the books. The books may be one of my most favorite elements of this piece. And this is where you see them on 3 sides of the stage floor, not on the rear of the piece. And I had not seen the finished pedestal until that visit in mid-May either. The pedestal and the statue were fabricated at different locations. One alteration that Stephen did make was he changed the, he calls it a crinoline, but the undergarment under the skirt, because after conversations with Joan, he realized he hadn't gotten it quite right. So he spent a lot of time adjusting that. And of course, the book upheld in her arm, the story, or the history rather, the history of Virginia. Couple of close-ups. And the piece is signed very discreetly, which it should be. And it's on the back side of the lectern that she's standing beside. So does anybody have any comments, questions about the finished piece?
It is really
That's
emotional.
everybody's got a big smile.
It is really emotional.
Everybody has a big
Yeah.
smile, yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Still touching after seeing it this many times.
Yeah, isn't it? Whew.
It was electric being there.
I know it was.
It really was. Just subtle things that we asked that she not appear fierce, but more like she was exhorting. And I think the
Exactly.
subtlety in this captures,
Oh, yeah.
he really listened and really captured that. It's an entreaty, it's an invitation. And docents, from what I gather, docents are already excited about showing
This
this
is
to all the
consequential.
school groups can be coming through. This sort of like, this is,
Some guides are already talking about it. They talk about the vacant space and they say, who's coming? And there's already a lot of anticipation.
Definitely does have the wow factor. It's like, wow. Oh, yeah.
makes you want to get up and do something.
It does. This is what inspires you to do more. Really. Mm.
Yeah, and the books, you can really see the titles. That was a key thing, I think,
Yes.
that.
And those book titles were actually fairly challenging to do, but there was never anything that we asked that, even if it were a challenge, Stephen would say, no, we don't really want to do that.
Mm.
He would say, sure. So every title was cast separately. It couldn't be cast as part of the stage floor. And then those titles were welded into the spine of each book individually. It then required a lot of finish work to make it look as though that hadn't been the process.
Amazing. Wow.
And I apologize that the photos aren't better than they are, but there's a big skylight over top of where the statue stands, and there's all this light flooding down on it, and it's very difficult to get good photographs.
Good to me.
Me too. Yes. Mm.
Well, if the commission is pleased with the result.
Family, please.
We are over.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm feeling the same way. So
You please, okay.
Yes,
The families, please.
very much so.
Yeah. So what's next?
I think a motion to approve would be appropriate.
Well, I move for the approval of the depiction of our ancestor, Barbara.
Rose.
Rose Jones.
Yeah.
I second that motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the depiction. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
I,
It's unanimous, Director Langen.
Great. I can't wait to tell Stephen. So I've been asked lots of questions over the last year, what comes next? What's going to happen? When is it going to happen? So I just want to run through next steps. Even though technically speaking, the work of the commission is complete with your approval of the statute, I would really benefit from your input on some of the decisions yet to be made. What I will do today, as soon as this meeting adjourns, is submit to the architect of the Capitol the request, which I've already drafted, requesting final approval. We are going to hope that that can be received before Congress recesses on July 23rd. While that review is taking place, we are going to also begin the conversation with the Speaker of the House about scheduling a date for the unveiling, because he has to approve that. I have been advised that we might be looking at late fall, just because of November being elections and leading up to that, people being busy. So we could be looking at the middle of November. They're in session, I think, 3 weeks in November and 2 weeks in December. So I think that might be our best window of opportunity. We also have to determine where the unveiling will take place. It won't take place in the crypt where the statue is going to be permanently located. It will take place either in Statuary Hall or Emancipation Hall. And I'm going to show you pictures of those two choices. We need to think about whether or not we want to have any commemorative items, and some states choose to do that. They have commemorative coins. The sky is the limit, but we are on a limited budget. And I should report to you how much is remaining of the 500,000 that was appropriated. We have about 100,000 left. And while that may sound like a lot, it really isn't.
Buying commemorative.
So, we've got to think about how we spend that 100,000. I'll be working on building a guest list for the unveiling ceremony. And you can imagine who will be on it. But we have to decide which of those two spaces we're going to use to know how many people we can actually accommodate. After the unveiling, it's customary to have a reception, and we need to finance that. So part of the 100,000 will be going to the reception that follows the unveiling. We will have some input in the program, and I've given you samples of programs of recently dedicated statues. It's heavily scripted, and the order is already determined. And often it includes some sort of music. So I would welcome input from the Johns family, or maybe people in Farmville affiliated with churches there. Any ideas for how we might integrate music into the program? And I can go to a slide that shows what it's program. Here's a typical invitation. The invitation actually is sent out by Congress. It's not coming from the Commonwealth. It's coming from Congress. So on the left, you see the recent Johnny Cash invitation. Here are some commemorative coins that some states have done over the last couple of years. This is Statuary Hall. and it is the more traditional location for an unveiling, but it only accommodates 220 people.
Mm.
What has been done recently is that in an adjacent space, they've had sort of an overflow area with live streaming so that if the guest list exceeds the capacity of Statuary Hall, then some guests can go to that other space. So this is more dramatic perhaps and more traditional, but it cannot accommodate as many people as Emancipation Hall, which is much larger. It can accommodate 500 to 600 people, but it does also require a joint resolution from Congress because this is shared space.
Right.
So the speaker doesn't have sole control, and they have to close the visitor center to the public because this is the visitor center essentially. So those decisions need to be made. Here's just a sample program. And as I said, it runs about 45 minutes. There's some speaking, there's some music, there's, the usual components that you might expect. And I'll need suggestions from people, who would be appropriate for these different roles? Who might be appropriate for the invocation and the benediction, music, that sort of thing.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I say we get John Lennon to come and sit at the piano like he did for that scandal and sing a change is gonna come.
Does she have a favorite hymn? Or hymn that she may like or a song? Maybe think about that. maybe?
Yeah, I would have to ask Joan.
Sure.
Actually, she
Mhm.
probably.
That would be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And if there's a family church that has,
I was thinking the same thing. There's a choir that would do something.
right,
Nice.
there is in Statuary Hall, a mezzanine level that choirs have performed
Oh,
from.
great. That would be a great idea.
And that would be very dramatic and quite beautiful.
I mean, I think for the period, that would probably be the most appropriate because, after all, that was where we spent most of our time.
Yeah,
So,
we always.
so a
had to
church
be-
choir would be, I think most people would come down on the side of having a church choir to be there to
Yep.
perform the music.
Let's see, I will be securing a block of hotel rooms for the night before.
Mhm.
These unveilings take place either on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday in the late morning. So I would assume most people on the commission would want to come up the evening before.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I was thinking we might do a dinner together, but there's also some partnership opportunities that have come to light. Longwood University and Moton Museum are interested in perhaps doing an event the night before. So I think we could potentially collaborate with them on something.
Wonderful.
So that's what I'll be working on.
Mhm.
I'd be happy to answer any questions.
2 questions, brief questions. One, you had originally looked into the feasibility of mini
Yes.
statues.
Yes.
Did that,
So the piece either has just been or is about to be laser scanned so that we can do scaled down replicas.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to start getting pricing on what those would cost. Last week I was at the Moton Museum and had a conversation with their director, Kanan Townsend, and they even have an interest in having them for their gift shop, long term.
Oh, that would be awesome because I got
The
one,
actual event, we might want some as well.
because I had the one Henrietta Lackey.
Right.
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm afraid to leave it in my office. I took it home.
Well, I will.
I don't think there's that many around and I don't want anybody to borrow it.
Right. And
mentioned commemorative, that's
Yeah.
what I think of it. 'Cause I-
I would be interested in knowing how people feel about coins because I'm indifferent.
Mhm.
But if other people think, oh, you have to do it, then
We have the statue. I don't think we need the coins.
No, I agree. I think if we had a little figurine, well, it's a little statue,
Okay.
and much like the one for the Henrietta Lackey one,
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be perfect.
Replicas.
Little replicas, yeah.
Little replicas,
Take
okay.
it out there, yeah.
How do you feel about the two spaces, Statuary Hall versus Emancipation Hall?
I like Statuary Hall, but I'm afraid we won't have enough space for the people who might want to come.
Right.
One thing too that has been suggested to me, I believe when I was in Farmville, is that it may be that there are watch parties taking place because it is live streamed.
Mm.
So
Right.
it may be that some people, if they know that option is available to them, would congregate, you know, in different places around the state for a watch.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sure the schools know about this.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
How's the acoustics? I mean, in terms of what they've done in the past, are they equally amenable to, I mean, because there's so much space and so much stone and everything for sound to reverberate off of. Is there an advantage from a technical perspective of doing it in one place over the other?
That's a great question that I've not asked, but I will.
And then my other question, Madam Chair, was you mentioned the reception and that cost. Is it legal or ethical or whatever to seek sponsorships to partner with our funds for that? Or is that not allowed? It has to be solely our funds?
Absolutely, that could be done.
That's what I was thinking.
And the legislation gives the commission authority to fundraise.
We hit up some lobbyists.
Mm-hmm. We could.
Well, I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you that would
Yeah, we-
not be a heavy lift for those of us who do this.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know what I mean? To get people to
I think
participate in a reception,
you're correct. Yes.
particularly if they were going to be included.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what I've been led to understand is that anybody who comes to the unveiling ceremony that day comes to the reception that follows, and it's light fare, you know, finger food, sort of like a light lunch kind of event. And one of the things that's nice about it, in addition to people just getting a chance to interact, is that it's another opportunity for people to speak. Because there are probably more people who would like to speak than there is time on the actual program. So there could be a short program at the reception as well. And then some states do an event the night before, some don't. Given, you know, our financial resources, I think partnering is probably what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
If we did it in Emancipation Hall, would the reception then be right there? Is it just like everything would happen in one place?
I'm not sure.
Because it wouldn't be if we do it in Statuary Hall, that would not be the case. I would.
No. that would
There's
be-
another space, there's like a reception room.
Yes.
That's off of
Exactly.
Emancipation Hall.
Yeah.
Well, then Emancipation Hall might accommodate everything. Then you thinking? Is that
It's
what you're
a
thinking?
space that we
Would
were
accommodate.
there on the tour of all the different statues and everything with the curator. And Emancipation Hall is light-filled. It's optimistic. It's forward-looking. It's bright. It's, I know it's got the little administrative challenges, but it is,
Could accommodate all of our needs right there.
it would accommodate everything, and it's kind of forward-looking and fresh.
Mhm.
And as much as I revere Statuary Hall, I like the idea, first of all, I like the idea that it's Emancipation Hall. And secondly, I like the idea that,
Just told me.
Mm-hmm.
well, and secondly, I like the idea that it's a reimagined kind of gathering place for the Capitol.
Okay.
It seems forward and fresh, the way I think of Barbara Rose Johns joining the pantheon of people who were
Moving
there.
forward.
That's
Mhm.
my thinking about it.
And do you need a motion on that one? Come on, Dr.
Well, I think we have to find out.
I'll need to see, you know, if they're available on the date that we settle on and all the rest of it, but it would be very helpful for me to know your preference.
I think the consensus is for Emancipation Hall. That's what it sounds like to me. So unless I'm incorrect,
Can mic it.
check that out.
Mhm.
Stephen would know
Today?
because it said Frederick Douglass there, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, they did.
well, ask him what it was like, because
Yes.
I've been in
Yes,
places
yes.
where we've had, for different events, I've had to run where we've had to mic rooms or halls with a lot of stuff, and sometimes it can be really tricky. But if they're used to doing it so that you don't hear speakers reverberating all over the walls, then, that would be that would really equal it
Well,
out.
I know that they just did Johnny Cash and Emancipation Hall.
Yeah, all right.
I think you have a consensus from
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
listeners
Yes.
to check that one out.
That's helpful.
Will the statue be at the ceremony?
So what happens is, the ceremony will be either a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, regardless of which of those days. It's brought to the Capitol late at night on the preceding Friday, and it is covered. And so it will be, if the unveiling were in Emancipation Hall, that's where it would be taken on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then after its unveiling, that day or the next, it would be moved down to the crypt to its permanent.
It's all the more reason to do it in Emancipation Hall where she stands alone as the only.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. No
Perfect.
competition.
Correct.
There are other statues in in Emancipation Hall,
Emancipation.
not nearly the number that
Oh, okay.
are in,
But we could see her
yes,
stand out.
yes. Frederick Douglass is in
Yeah.
Emancipation Hall.
Okay.
I think Helen Keller
Yes.
was in Emancipation Hall.
Okay.
Yeah, they're good people.
There are not as many, nowhere near as many.
Yeah.
Right.
Long as
And
Robbie.
that large figure that you see, that's a replica of the top of the Capitol Dome.
Okay.
Oh,
That's why it's so oversized, is
Mhm.
that it's a actual replica, same dimensions as the figure at the top of the Capitol.
Okay.
mm. Yeah.
Any other ideas, suggestions, questions?
How will you go about soliciting external support? Who will have responsibility for that? For the reception?
Well, that's a good question. The authority is given to the commission, but I support the commission. And then I've already been given reason to believe that there's a possibility of Longwood and the Mode Museum wanting to participate in something. But as far as going out and asking someone to write a check, I guess any of us could do that.
I think if we had a letter coming from the commissioners,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Letting them
to-
know where we
Well,
are, how
yeah.
close we are and what we're planning.
and that we would like to have their support in sponsoring.
Sponsorships. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'd like to see happen.
Well, why don't I see how these expenses shake out? Because I don't know how far the 100,000 that we have is going to take us.
Probably not far when you start looking at the cost of a reception.
Well, you are correct, because I just tried to get a ballpark figure for what it would cost. You have to use their food service
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
That escalates.
for very light fare, and it's a minimum of $60 a person. So,
Correct.
you know, if you're having 500 guests, you do the math and then,
Light.
you know.
Does the $100,000,
That's
Thank the Lord,
exactly, that's exactly right.
do we draw down from that the chunk of change we need to get it from Stevens Studio to the Capitol, or? is
No,
that-
I've already accounted for that and for the final payment to him.
Okay.
So,
I'm just thinking about the cost of reception we had right down in
Yeah,
Main Street.
yeah.
That's like 50,000, so that's
Yeah.
gonna go quickly.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's not nearly the size crowd that you're gonna have for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that $100,000 is gonna get,
And we want it nice.
Evaporate.
We want it nice. We want it
Exactly.
classy. This is for Barbara Rose
I
Johnson.
think you go to Moton, I think you go to Longwood, I think you go to, some of the other colleges and universities.
Right, especially
And
the
ask for
HBCUs.
sponsorship for something of this nature.
Mhm.
I mean, this is
Once in a lifetime.
Yes,
once
it
in a
is.
lifetime. This
Yes,
is
it is.
historic, it's consequential.
Yeah.
And I would hope that almost anybody that we would ask to be a sponsor
Mhm.
would just say yes.
If they are sponsors,
Yes,
then they would get a ticket.
yes.
Well, that depends on whether or not we put them on our guest list. So
Yeah.
here's what happens. we have to put together a guest list
Yeah.
that we give to the speaker. I'm not sure who it goes to, if it's in Emancipation Hall, because that's shared space.
Probably gonna go Speaker Johnson.
And they start sending out via email those invitations that I showed you a picture of. And they do it in blocks. So they might send out 100 and see what the response is. And then they move to the next 100, and then they move to the next 100, and they get as far down the list as they have the capacity for. If we're in Emancipation Hall, there's still a limit, but it's got a lot more space.
Members of Congressional Black Caucus.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna, oh yeah, we could certainly get it from them.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to sponsor.
Yeah, we'll
Who
let them write us
controls
a
the
check.
guest list? Do we invite, does Congress invite?
The Congress.
Oh,
Well, they will take
But
up all the
they take the
tickets.
guest list that we give them. They invite, all of Congress is invited.
that's too many.
And then they invite, going from top to bottom of whatever guest list we give them, they issue the invitations until they run out of room. And they give people deadlines. So if you're in that first group and you haven't responded, they go down and they invite more people. So we can give them a list that's larger than the amount of space available.
The Virginia delegation, when they get through inviting their guests, that's gonna.
I know. I know.
One of the things I've wondered is, do we invite individuals or do we invite every person and a guest? Because then that is, many more people if people are bringing a guest.
I'm not bringing my husband. Excuse me. As long as I can come. I'm just saying.
Where's
Where's
the Misha Jackson?
They take,
I'm not taking Connie.
I mean, they had the leadership of the legislature, but then they take the list that you give them as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. They invite all of Congress, but I've been told that most members don't attend unless it's their state. And of
Right.
course, then they do.
Okay, good.
But they're not going to fill up and take all the seats.
Hmm. But I don't know, they might, because this one is special, This is unlike anything that's ever happened before. Got this
For Virginia.
young girl, yeah.
So you'll see the invitation, and it is actually, Congress extending
Yeah,
the invitation.
she's our baby.
Thank you for all of that information.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions of Director Langen? I'm gonna miss these meetings.
What color we wearing?
Because
Because
this-
another.
because this is the most comfortable meeting we ever had.
Yeah. And we've got something
rest of 'em are so
accomplished that we could see and it's
Yeah.
gonna last for eternity.
That's right.
Oh.
This has been a good meeting for us.
Mhm. I mean, from the beginning, oh, God.
Has to be the last one.
We can have reunions.
I'd like to have another meeting to be updated on how all of this unfolds. We could do that. And now that you've passed the
Yeah.
virtual meeting policy, it could be virtual.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah,
do
let's do
that
that.
because I think we'd like to have one more update before the
Mm-hmm.
actual invitations go out and instructions on how you reserve your hotels and
Mm-hmm.
who all might be coming.
Sponsorship.
And that kind of thing. I think we need to have at least one more meeting.
Okay?
Okay.
And those.
That is
of
if
you who
everybody's in
have
agreement.
ideas,
That's if everybody's in agreement. Okay.
just reach out to me.
Okay.
As you have them, some suggestions. That can
So send us some
about,
dates.
pardon me?
Send us some dates. Dates for a meeting?
I will.
Okay.
Stay away from November the 4th.
But if you have ideas about people who
Yeah,
should
opposition.
go on the guest list, sources of music,
Mhm.
choirs, soloists,
Doug Weller.
any kind of
Yes,
musician,
yes.
appropriate choice